What's going on, and welcome to the Solo Shot. My name is Tom Vecchio. We have a 10-game MLB slate tonight. Lock is set for 6:35. As always, this is one of the many shows on the FanDuel Podcast Network. You can find it anywhere, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, you name it. Give it a like, follow, or subscribe. Leave a review. That is greatly appreciated. You can follow me on Twitter at Tom_Vecchio1. The video version of this can be found on the FanDuel YouTube page. It can be found on FanDuel TV Plus. And it can be found on FanDuel.com/watch. Before we hop into things, get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only, $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. If you're in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, or Virginia, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT if you are in Indiana. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. If you're in Louisiana, call 1-877-770-STOP. Visit mbgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. NFL Sunday Ticket offer ends 9/18/23. No refunds, terms, and embargoes apply. $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket, not YouTube TV, and YouTube TV base plan is required to watch YouTube TV. Redemption requires a Google account and current form of payment. Commercial use excluded. All right, let's hop into tonight's 10-game MLB slate. Again, lock is set for 6:35, a little bit earlier than normal. Keep that in mind. When it comes to weather on tonight's slate, we're looking pretty good. There could be a bit of rain for the New York Mets. They're at home hosting the Arizona Diamondbacks. There could be a bit of rain for the Boston Red Sox. They're at home hosting the New York Yankees. Could be a bit of a late start. They'll end up playing because it'll lighten up as things go on. Just, kind of keep that in mind. There's no Coors Field on tonight's slate. And the 10 p.m. Dodgers-Padres game is not on this slate. So keep all that in mind. Again, lock is set for 6:35. Let's hop into pitching, where we have some great options all the way up at the top. Starting off with Spencer Strider at 11,800, Zach Gallen 10.6, Eduardo Rodriguez at 10.3, Hunter Brown at 9.9, Jordan Montgomery at 9.7, and Yusei Kikuchi at 9.3 round out the options that are 9K and above. Obviously, things are led by Spencer Strider and Zach Gallen, or I should say Zach Gallen and Spencer Strider, the number 1 and number 2 favorites for the NL Cy Young right now. So we have legitimately great options to be looking at tonight. Again, there's no Coors Field. There's no Dodgers on tonight's slate. We do obviously have the Braves. Strider is pitching. So there are some pretty clear offenses that we want to get to tonight. Let's start off with Spencer Strider, who we could say is the best pitcher on tonight's slate. Whether he wins the Cy Young is a different story, but his fantasy upside is legitimately unmatched, not only tonight, but realistically on most slates that he pitches. He comes in with a 37.8% strikeout rate this season, 7.9% walk rate, allowing 1.11 home runs per 9. He has a 2.81 Sierra Skill Interactive ERA, is absolutely unbelievable. He has a 19.5% swinging strike rate, is absolutely nuts. And he comes in with a 50.4% medium contact rate and a 45.1% fly ball rate. We'd like to see that fly ball rate a little bit lower, but of course, it's still good to see that medium contact. The double-digit strikeout potential for Spencer Strider is always there. And I know he's coming off of 2 rougher starts, 4 earned runs against the Dodgers. It is what it is. It's the Dodgers. He did have 9 strikeouts in that outing. 6 earned runs in only 2.2 innings pitched with 5 strikeouts against St. Louis is not what we want to be seeing. Tonight, he's going up against the Philadelphia Phillies, who are certainly a tougher test when it comes to teams overall, but realistically, the fantasy upside that Strider brings is something that we want to be buying into. He's legitimately one of the best, if not the best fantasy pitcher we can get because of that high strikeout upside. Philly right now with their current active roster versus right-handed pitching coming with a 23.4% strikeout rate versus righties, which is the 12th worst in the league. They're still a solid offense overall. They come with a 105 WRC plus and a 174 team ISO in this split versus righties with their current active roster. So yeah, they have some power in their lineup. That's not really too much of a surprise. That's what they've been doing. The question becomes is how much do we value Strider at 11.8 and his strikeout upside ahead of Zach Gallen at 10.6? And like I said, Zach Gallen is currently the odds-on favorite to win the NL Cy Young. He comes with a 26% strikeout rate, 5.2% walk rate, only allowing 0.96 home runs per 9. He has a 3.65 Sierra, a 50.5% medium contact rate, and a 40.9% ground ball rate. We also look to Zach Gallen, and he comes in with an 11.3% swinging strike rate. There's no doubt that Strider is the better strikeout pitcher compared to Zach Gallen. That is very, very clear. And the double-digit strikeout upside that we see from Strider, like I said, really can't be matched on most slates, and it's not matched on this slate. There's no other pitcher that can touch his strikeout rate. Zach Gallen is an awesome pitcher. There's no doubt about it. And he's 10.6, which is, considerably cheaper compared to Strider, who's at 11.8, getting $1,200 of salary relief for, I guess you could say he's the best pitcher in the NL right now. As I said, he's the odds-on favorite to win the Cy Young. How much are we valuing that salary relief, given the fact that he's going up against the Mets, who, like I said, they're not the best team overall, but they're still putting up runs. And, they're putting up runs last night, the night before, whatever it might be. And then how do we value Zach Gallen potentially ahead of Eduardo Rodriguez at 10.3 or Hunter Brown at 9.9? Because Hunter Brown has an awesome matchup going up against Oakland. And I know Oakland, surprisingly has won a few games against the Astros. The Astros kind of let us down last night, and so did Verlander, but it's still Oakland. And like I said, baseball, it's a weird sport, weird stuff happens, but it's still an easy matchup for Hunter Brown. So ultimately, the question becomes is, how do we rank these pitchers? Just as we were last night, where there's some positives and negatives going for all of these pitchers. When we look to Hunter Brown, he's the least expensive among this bunch, and he comes with a 26.9% strikeout rate and an 8.1% walk rate. And of course, his sample size is a bit smaller, just given the fact that this is his first real full season in the majors. He did pitch last year with 20.1 inning sample size, but obviously we can only take so much for that. He comes in with a 3.70 Sierra. Now he's a very, very heavy ground ball pitcher, medium contact pitcher, which is great to see, with a 52.5% ground ball rate. He knows how to limit the damage, which is why he's only allowing 1.27 home runs per 9. And going up against Oakland is obviously a matchup that we love to see. Oakland right now, with their current active roster versus righties, coming with a 24.5% strikeout rate, which is the 6th worst in the league. They also come with a 91 WRC plus and a 159 ISO. So there's no doubt that Oakland, of course, as you would expect, they're a weaker offense compared to the Mets and compared to Philly. But Hunter Brown just hasn't flashed that high fantasy upside that we've seen from Zach Gallen and seen from Spencer Strider, where Hunter Brown is a good pitcher and Zach Gallen is a great pitcher, and I think Spencer Strider is an elite pitcher. Now, we get value from them in different ways, where Gallen can go to 6 or 7 innings, have 6, 7 strikeouts, maybe 8, and he's going to really limit the damage in terms of earned runs. Strider, he's going to give up a home run here or there, but he's going to have 10 or 11 strikeouts to kind of compensate for those earned runs. So ultimately, I think Hunter Brown's a good option tonight. He's not a great option. I would certainly put him behind Strider and Gallen. So it'd be Strider, Gallen, Brown, and then Rodriguez for me in terms of ranking these top pitchers. Eduardo Rodriguez has looked solid this year for the Tigers, but again, his strikeout upside doesn't touch what we get from the other pitchers. And Cincinnati, while they're a mediocre offense overall, and they do have some pop, they strike out a good amount at 22.8% with their current active roster versus lefties, which is 13th in the league. So they're right around the league average. So I might as well just take a little bit of salary relief on Hunter Brown, who's 9.9. Granted, it's only $400 less expensive to get the Brown. He just has a higher strikeout matchup going up against Oakland. So as we were last night, we're kind of splitting hairs between all of these pitchers. But ultimately, Strider, Gallen, Brown, Rodriguez is how I would rank this top tier of pitching. Now, we have no Coors Field on tonight's slate. Do you want to be going somewhere else for some of these less expensive options when it comes to, in terms of the pitchers that are super, super cheap, so you just load up on any hitters that you want? There's really no one that jumps off the page. Connor Phillips at $6,500 for the Cincinnati Reds is expected to make the start for them today, with the Reds giving Andrew Abbott an extra day off. Obviously, this matchup going up against the Tigers is something that we'd love to be going to. The Tigers coming with a 24.6% strikeout rate versus righties, which is the fifth worst in the league right now, and an 84 WRC plus and a 141 team ISO. So there's no doubt that this is absolutely a great offense to be targeting with the Tigers. I just don't know what we're going to be getting out of Connor Phillips, who, again, has an extremely small sample size for the Reds. If I go anywhere, it's probably going to be Connor Phillips for the Reds if I'm going outside of that top tier pitching. But again, that is truly the goal, is to get up to one of those pitchers tonight. Let's move on to stacks. And again, we have some solid offenses on tonight's slate. Again, the 10 p.m. Dodgers-Padres game is not on the slate. There's also no Coors Field on tonight's slate. We do have the Braves, and they're on the road going up against Philly, going up against Christopher Sanchez. The Braves, as they showed last night, as they showed the other day in the doubleheader, as they show in every single game, apparently, they're going to hit 3 or 4 home runs every single game. So yes, stack the Braves with their, 5.01 in implied run total today. I don't think that's too much of a surprise. But where else do we want to be going outside of the Braves? Let's start with the Baltimore Orioles. They are at home. They're going up against the Cardinals. The Cardinals will have Drew Rom on the mound. This is a great matchup for the Orioles. And realistically, this is a matchup where we should see them put up 6-7 runs. That's the type of performance we should be seeing. Drew Rom for the Cardinals, he only has 17.1 innings pitched at the major league level. This is his first year in the majors. He was previously with Baltimore earlier this season. In the minors, he did not pitch in the majors. So only 17.1 innings pitched out of Drew Rom at the MLB level this season. He's allowing 2.08 home runs per 9, a 12.8% strikeout rate, which is extremely low. An 11.6% walk rate is obviously very, very high. 3.44 BABIP. He comes in with a 6.00 Sierra, a 40% fly ball rate, and a 36.9% hard contact rate. Again, this is an extremely small sample size from Drew Rom. However, there's really nothing that indicates that this is going to be changing too dramatically. When we look to some of his numbers from AAA over the past few seasons, he was at a 9.8, 11.5, and 10.9% walk rate. So he does not appear to be a pitcher that has a ton of command on the mound, and he's going to be letting runners on base for free. And that should only benefit the Orioles, a team that has immense power up and down their lineup. We also look to the Orioles in terms of stacking overall. They're not super, super expensive. Anthony Santander at $3,800 is their most expensive hitter. Gunnar Henderson is $35. Adley Rutschman is $33. Cedric Mullins, if he plays, is $3,200. And then we look to a bit of value starting, after Ryan Mountcastle, I guess, at $3,100. The rest of the players are going to be $3K and below. So this is where we really can be going. Now, Drew Rom is a righty on the is a lefty. So what we get out of the lineup for the Orioles is going to be largely right-handed. But I still have interest in a player like Gunnar Henderson, who is a lefty. He has immense power versus righties. It's obviously very mediocre versus lefties, but once this gets to the Cardinals bullpen, I expect them to bring in some righties. Thus, I still want some exposure to Henderson. So right off the jump, it doesn't appear to be a great matchup for Henderson within lefty-lefty, but I'll still be looking to get him into lineups. Of course, we want to be going to Ryan Mountcastle with a 319 ISO versus lefties this season. Absolutely awesome. Austin Hayes with a 206 ISO is something that we also want. Anthony Santander with a 178 ISO. And of course, filter in players like Jordan Westberg, Adley Rutschman. They don't have as much power, but someone like Rutschman, as I've said, is not striking out a whole lot this season. He puts the ball in play. He has an 11.2% strikeout rate versus lefties, which is so low, and a 16.8% walk rate. He's very, very disciplined at the plate. Yes, he doesn't have an immense power upside, but he gets on base. He doesn't waste chances, and he's going to be a good part of that stack. So We're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like six legitimately great options from the Orioles when it comes to stacking tonight. I don't want to drop down and take Aaron Hicks, James McCann, players at this tier. These are not players I'm targeting in my lineups if I don't have to. It's really about sticking at this top tier with Santander, Rutschman, Henderson, Hayes, Mountcastle. That's really where we want to be going for a good combination of power and salary from the Orioles. So with a slate high 5.80 implied run total for the Orioles tonight, we should be looking to get some exposure to them. Next up, let's take a look at the Boston Red Sox. They're at home going up against Clark Schmidt. The Red Sox have a 5.19 implied team total. Clark Schmidt for the Yankees, he's a good pitcher. He's an okay pitcher, whatever you want to call it. He's just like a middle of the road kind of, SP3 type of pitcher where he's not overly dominant. He allows 1.28 home runs per 9, a 22.8% strikeout rate. Like none of that is worrisome. He has a 6.2% walk rate, a 4.11 skill interactive ERA, and he allows a 38.1% fly ball rate. He's just very middle of the road, and there's nothing that we should be too worried about when we see this type of pitcher on the mound. He's not overly dominant in strikeouts. He allows a few home runs here or there. The fly balls can be an issue for him, and obviously that should just benefit a team like the Red Sox at home in a great hitter's park. So when we look to the Red Sox, where do we want to be going? I have a ton of interest in Tristan Casas tonight at 3,200. He's one of my favorite options on tonight's slate. He's having a great year, and Gunnar Henderson's probably going to win Rookie of the Year in the AL, but man, Tristan Casas is having an awesome year, and he comes in with a 226 ISO versus righties, which is something that we absolutely want in our lineups, especially at a pretty modest salary at 3,200. Adam Duvall has a 304 ISO versus righties, and I know he's been struggling a bit as of late. He's been in and out of the lineup for the Red Sox, but Duvall has a ton of power, and whether or not he makes the lineup is yet to be seen, but he's still the type of player I like to get into my lineups because that home run upside is always going to be there. Then it really comes down to who you can afford from the Red Sox, depending on what you're doing with pitching. Of course, getting Devers into your lineup is the ideal, starting of a stack for Boston, getting Devers 3,800. But if you're paying up for Strider or you're paying up for Zach Gallen, that may not be possible depending on what you're doing with the other stack. So this is where I want to kind of start things with Tristan Casas at 3,200. Obviously, still a great spot to go. If I could get Devers, Casas, Turner, Yoshida, that would be a great stack from the Red Sox. But again, it comes down to what you have available. So Casas, Yoshida, Verdugo, I think is a pretty solid start for at least a 3-man stack when it comes to Boston. And it's at 32, 3,100, and 3K for those 3 players. So really not that expensive for 3 solid hitters from Boston. Again, if you drop down and take a less expensive pitcher, of course, look to get Devers in your lineup each and every time you can afford him. So the Red Sox in a great spot. We have the Orioles, I think, are an awesome spot tonight. We have the Braves on tonight's slate. You can always be looking to them. Houston's on tonight's slate. Again, I know they let us down over the past few days. I'm still going to be willing to go back to Houston, just given their offense. And I'm not worried about a matchup going up against Paul Blackburn. Where else going to be looking, though? I think I want to look at the White Sox tonight. And they're on the road going up against they're at home taking on the Kansas City Royals. The road Royals should have Steven Cruz expected to, quote-unquote, start the game, but he's just going to be an opener for the Royals. It should be Alec Marsh taking the bulk pitching after that. Alec Marsh this season comes in with a 25.3% strikeout rate, which is certainly pretty solid, 11.9% walk rate, and 2.41 home runs per 9 allowed. This does come from a 56-inning sample size, which is somewhat decent, coming in with a 4.50 Sierra and a 45.8% fly ball rate. So this is not a pitcher we need to be worried about. Now, when it comes to the White Sox, they're not a good team. I know they put up some runs last night. I know the Royals put up some runs last night. It is what it is. I have interest in some of the White Sox hitters, and I'm not running to get them into my lineups because ultimately they're not a good team. Do I think there are some players that are viable for fantasy? Of course. And it's largely due to their salaries. Luis Robert at 3,500 is clearly the best player on the White Sox by, I would say, a large margin. A 277 ISO and a 351 WOBA in this split is absolutely awesome. And that's ultimately what we want in our lineups. But when we're looking to pay for pitching, and we're trying to get some of the players from the Orioles or getting some Braves or getting Devers and a Red Sox stack, whatever it might be, we may not have the salary for the White Sox. So I like them because after Luis Robert, 3,500, every other hitter on the White Sox is 2,900 and below. Moncada, Vaughn, Benintendi, Jimenez, Tim Anderson, whoever it might be that makes their lineup, they're all 2,900 and below. So they're at least somewhat enticing based on their salaries and their matchup going up against Alec Marsh. That's what this really comes down to. I'm interested in what they bring and what they allow the rest of the lineup to do, right? It's not like I'm starting my lineups with the White Sox. I'm starting the lineups with the Braves. I'm starting the lineups with the Orioles, and then I need the salary relief. Thus, we go to the White Sox. So Andrew Vaughn with a 184 ISO is someone that I want in my lineups. Again, very modest salary coming in at 2,900. Benintendi doesn't have a lot of power, but if you're taking like a small three-man stack from the White Sox, he's a player that we know doesn't strike out a whole lot and can certainly get on base. So I'm interested in what the White Sox allow the rest of the lineup to do. Again, I don't want to be starting off too many lineups with a full White Sox stack just because their offense isn't going to be putting up a massive amount of runs on a nightly basis. It's starting with the Braves, it's starting with the Orioles, and then filtering in some less expensive hitters from a team like the White Sox, thus allowing us to pay up for Gallen or Strider. All right, let's get to the home run calls to kind of close things out. It's going to be starting off with Tristan Casas for the Red Sox. As I said, really, really good power numbers versus righties this year. And again, 3,200 for Casas is an awesome salary tonight. Absolutely loving that. And then I'm going to go to Austin Hayes for the Baltimore Orioles. He's looking hot at the plate right now. He has an ISO over 200 versus lefties this year. We absolutely love to see that. So Tristan Casas for the Red Sox and Austin Hayes for the Orioles will be my two dinger calls to close things out. All right, so that does it for today's podcast. As always, it can be found on Apple Podcasts. It can be found on Spotify. The video version can be found on FanDuel. The FanDuel YouTube page can be found on FanDuel TV Plus. Can be found on FanDuel.com/watch. You can follow me on Twitter at Tom_Vecchio1. And until next time, good luck in your contests.